right. Oh. Hi, I'm John, and I'm an addict. That song is from the movie Rocky, if you all remember it, and it was filmed where I grew up. And I watched them filming it, and there's a scene in the film where there's a whole bunch of young kids running behind Sylvester Stallone, and I'm in that group of kids running with him. And how ironic that that film would sort of become a metaphor for my life. See, I thought I was a contender. I thought I could handle drugs and alcohol. And from the time I had my first drink of whiskey to my last hit of dope, drugs and alcohol kicked my ass. And I found out I was a loser when it came to drugs and alcohol. I came into these rooms and I found out a very important principle, and that was how to become a winner. How to become a winner. And my sponsor taught me a simple principle that we find it necessary to stick with winners. We find it necessary to stick with winners. You know, when I'm with certain people, I make really bad choices and decisions. But I'm with you, I make really good choices and decisions. So I today choose to stick with winners. I think we all do. That's why we're here. So if it takes a transatlantic flight to find a group of winners, I'm in. I'm willing to do it. And I think you are too. And so we stick with each other because when we're with each other, amazing things happen. And Richard, all those years ago, flew over to that cruise, that CA anniversary cruise. And I remember Terry saying, "Hey, come on over here, meet this motherfucker from Sweden." I'm like, Sweden? Really? And there began a great friendship. And who knew that the hand of God was at work on that cruise, bringing people together and helping us to somehow, whoa. I got that monkey off my back. That's okay. A few years back, I was over speaking in Scotland, and part of my story is after I had my first drink of whiskey, I burned my grandmother's house down. And as soon as I told that story, the fire alarm went off in the building, and we had to evacuate the building. So you never know what's going to happen. You just got to be prepared. I want to tell you today just maybe two really important principles. You know, when you were in high school, you probably learned the principle of Archimedes, right? And you probably don't remember it, okay? But here's the thing about a principle. Principle is not a rule. You don't make them up. You don't choose whether or not you want to follow a principle or not. A principle follows you. And you can't break a principle. A principle can only break you. And the principle of Archimedes was the principle of buoyancy. You throw a stone into the water, it sinks. You put a boat on top of the water, it floats. And that's a principle no matter what. And I found in this program that the principle of sticking with winners applies. When I'm with you, I know I'm a much better person. When I'm with you, I know I make much better decisions and choices. When I'm with you, I know the direction of my life unfolds into goodness. When I'm not with you, I don't know what will happen. I don't know where my life will go. And the second principle is that we get to where we should be the same way we get to where we shouldn't be. We get to where we should be the same way we get to where we shouldn't be. And that's simply by following directions. You know, if you follow directions, you're going to get to where you want to go. Many times when we follow directions, we still get lost because we didn't get the right directions. But here's the thing, we don't know we were lost until way down the road. And then we figure it out. And we have to stop and get a new set of directions. And that can turn us around. And when I came to this fellowship, you gave me a different set of directions than I had. For a while, my life was going, I thought, in a great direction. I was happy, I was content, until I realized I was lost, and the direction wasn't taking me where I wanted to go. And so I needed a new set of directions. Those directions, of course, are the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that we have adopted in Cocaine Anonymous. And I began to follow them, and it's amazing where my life has taken me to this point. And I've been sober for a while. My sobriety date is February 26, 1989. And my life is full today. My life is full. My life is full. And I look with great excitement. I'm grateful that, when we start these meetings, we're asking for those who are new to stand, those in the first 30 days or so. Because I look at you with great excitement because I know what the future holds for you. See, we can predict our future because we know where this program will take us. We also know where drugs and alcohol will take us. We can predict that future as well. And so when I see the new people, it just fills me with a lot of hope and a lot of joy. And it reminds me that we've been doing what we've been supposed to be doing, carrying the message, because you're here. So thank you for having the courage to be here, and the willingness to come, the willingness to stand up, and the willingness to come back day after day as you have been throughout this weekend. I had my first sip of whiskey when I was 6 years old. And my grandfather gave it to me by mistake because he was pretty well drunk. And he used to give us ginger ale in a highball glass. And we thought we were really cool. And we'd have a cherry in it and we would drink. And one day he made a mistake and gave us whiskey. I remember it clearly, like it was yesterday. It tasted terrible, it burnt. But in a few moments, it changed the way I felt. And I knew it. I felt happy, I was giddy, I was laughing. I was no longer kind of a shy, withdrawn child. And my next thought was, gee, how do I get more of that? See, I figured that's what the adults do. And they've been hiding it from me. And I was kind of a little bit pissed off. So I thought, I'm going to get more of this. So the next time we're at my grandparents' house, my cousin and I managed to steal his bottle of whiskey, go down to the basement and start drinking it and have a good old time. Somehow or the other, I guess we were playing with matches and started a fire. And I can remember the flames coming and thinking, probably should put this out. And we were 6 years old. Tried to put it out, realized it wasn't going out, so I said to my cousin, I think we better get out of here because the steps were now on fire. We kind of go up the steps with the flames and the black smoke following. And I got to the top of the steps and one of my aunts was sitting there and she said, is something on fire? I said, no, and I just walked right out the door. See, right there, the denial sets in. You're not able to deal with reality as it unfolds. So that was the first house I burnt down. There were a few more over the years, but the story kind of just repeats itself. But it was from that moment on I realized there was something out there that could change the way I felt. And it was beer, it was whiskey when I could get it, and as we got older, it was marijuana, and then it was pills, it was Quaaludes, all the way up to heroin. And, there was never a thought in my head, this is bad, you shouldn't do it. We didn't have the say no to drugs thing, in the 60s and 70s, it was just there. And I remember all the guys coming back from Vietnam, they had fought there, and a lot of them were addicted to dope. And they were the cool guys to me. And so I wanted to join them, and I did. Now, the world I grew up in Philadelphia, was a very ethnic community. It was very Italian, it was very Catholic. And there were two institutions there that always caught my imagination as a young boy. One was the church, because it was big, it dominated everybody's lives, and the priests were well respected, and they drove nice cars. The other was the mafia. And they were well respected, they drove nice cars, they had a lot of girls, they had guns, and I thought, which one? Which one was for me? because they were really the only two choices. And they both had their good points and bad points, but that just captured my imagination. You know, and as Kent said last night, like him, I grew up in a very wonderful, loving home with great parents who did all the right things to raise me, taught me values, taught me right from wrong, taught me about a loving God and so forth and so on, but I didn't hear most of it for some reason. So as I grew, I decided, well, I think I'll go in this direction. So my friends and I, we decided we would become our own little junior mafia. And it wasn't real pretty, but we were the cool kids. So sooner or later, we start working for the mob guys. We would run their errands and do things for them, and they would pay us. And then we were really, really cool. But then we also had money to buy dope, which was even better. So this went on for many years. And I can remember at one point we decided, you know, shit, we're doing all the work and these guys are making all the money. So we just started skimming some of the profit. I can tell you that's really not a good idea. Any time to do it, because you're going to get caught, but when you get caught by a mob guy, it's really not a good idea. And I can remember this day I was headed to the bar where we used to have to go turn in the money we collected from the people who placed bets and such. And the guy was standing out in the front of the bar, which he never did. So it was a little suspicious. And I walked up, and as I got closer, I kind of saw he had a bat behind him. I thought, this is bad. So I just turned around and started running the other way, and he started chasing me. And I'm running, he's chasing me, and I have my school books with me, and I fall in front of them and trip, and he grabs me. He says, "You son of a bitch, I'm going to break your legs, you no good thief." And all I could think was, you can't break my legs. Why the hell can I? And just like this, it came out of my mouth, because I'm going to go become a priest. Yeah. That's exactly what he did. I went, what? I said, yeah, you see, I'm going to go in the seminary and study to be a priest. Now, for an Italian Catholic, you say that, he's not going to hit you. Okay? Because his hand is going to stick out of the grave if he does, and that was kind of... So he said, oh. So he didn't, and then I realized I had to go through with it. So, you don't want to make promises you can't keep, I can tell you. So I thought, well, okay, I'll apply, but they won't accept me because I'm kind of a hoodlum. And they did. And I went, and I thought, well, I won't stay. I'll get kicked out, and I didn't. And I remember I got there, and I thought, and they had really strict rules. There was no drinking allowed at all. Of course, no drugs at all. And I remember my mother thought that was really great. She said, "You're not going to be able to drink anymore, are you?" She already knew there was something going on with me. The first day I met a guy, and after dinner he said, "Hey, you want to go for a walk?" I said, "Sure." We went for a walk, and he went to the parking lot where he had his car, and he popped his trunk, and there he had a full wet bar. It was just great. I'm thinking, perfect, bingo, God loves me. God wants me to be here. This is proof. This is proof. So we drank, we drank. Another guy had a pharmacy in his room. Whatever you wanted, it was there. So it was just all in pill form, in liquid form. And amazingly, somehow I got through. God blessed me with a good intellect, so I was able to pass my exams and move through. And the whole time I'm conflicted because I'm realizing there's something isn't right with me. I really, really have this desire to serve God and to help my fellow human beings. At the same time, I really, really have this desire to get high. And I don't know what to do with it. And I don't know who to tell, because who could you tell? So you just find the people who are like you, which is exactly what we do. And I found the people who were like me, and we just co-signed on our own behavior. And we picked up for each other, we looked out for each other, and we somehow stumbled through the whole stupid process. I got ordained in 1988, and I got sober in 1989. So it tells you that first year was a mess, was a real mess. And I can remember thinking to myself, well, now it'll be different. It'll be different. I'll be able to handle my drinking and drink like an adult. Of course, that didn't happen. And one of the things you find out, especially in the States, people tend to like to drink with clergy because I guess it makes them feel less guilty. And so, yeah, it was all the booze you wanted. And I quickly found the people who used drugs and went with them. And what happened, all my hopes and dreams just went down the drain at that moment because I had them. And I had the innocence, I think, that I could somehow change the world and make a difference. Everything that a new, priest would want. And I quickly just saw it crumble. And I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know drugs and alcohol were the problem. I thought it was something else. So things spiraled way out of control. I hurt a lot of people. I stole a lot of money. I did a lot of dope. I ruined, I think, a lot of people's trust and their whole image of God in the church. And I saw that happening right before my eyes and didn't know what to do about it. So at one moment, it's that moment of clarity that comes. It came to me one night in February 1989. And I just prayed, please God help me. Please God help me. And see, what I found out is that those prayers that we make, whether we're sincere or not, don't really matter. God hears them. And the proof is that we're all here. Whether it was with our head in the toilet, whether it was when somebody had a gun to our head in a dope house and we said, please save me, something intervened to bring us to this point. And I prayed that prayer and I called somebody who I trusted and I said, I don't know what's wrong. I'm losing my mind. So he came and got me and took me to a psychiatric hospital. Fun places, psychiatric hospitals, right? And I remember going there and I met Abraham Lincoln and I met Jesus and I met Betsy Ross and I thought, these are my people. These are my people. This is where I felt like I belonged because I couldn't explain myself to me. And they just seemed just as nuts as I was, so it's like, let's just have a party. And I was blessed to run into a psychiatrist there who said to me finally, she said, I think maybe you have a little bit of a problem with drugs or alcohol. And I went, really? Why would you say that? She said, well, why don't you just try going to maybe an AA meeting? I said, okay. And the thing in my head was, where I grew up, when people went to AA, you heard, that poor bastard drank himself into AA. So I thought a bunch of losers sitting in these AA meetings crying about the fact that they could never have a drink again. So it wasn't really anywhere I wanted to go. And she said to me, and this is how God works, at least in my life, and I'm sure in your life as well. She said, do you know anybody who goes to AA? Well, 6 months prior to that moment, a friend of mine who I used to drink and drug with, have a party with, and I hadn't seen him in many years, he had called me up. And he had come back moved back to town. And he said, hey, let's get together. Of course, I'm like, sure, good memories of, he always had good dope. So I went, met him, and he told me his story. He got sober 2 years earlier. And I can remember listening to the story and thinking, oh, you poor bastard. You can't drink anymore. You can't use anymore. And I just felt really sad for him. I didn't know at that moment God was planting a seed. And 6 months later, the physician says, can you know anybody who goes to AA? I said, yeah, actually I do. So I called him. And he came and took me to a meeting. And it was my first meeting. It was AA back then. And I didn't know who these people were. I didn't know what they were about. But I kind of liked the feel of the room. And I saw the steps on the wall, but it never said don't drink or drug. You notice the 12 steps don't say that? So I continued to drink and drug. But I went to the meetings, And of course, I'm sure everybody else knew that, but nobody was telling me, don't, you can't come if you're drinking. And thank God they didn't, because I kept coming, but I kept drinking and I kept drugging. And that, as the big book says, becomes an intolerable situation. When we have a head full of AA and a belly full of booze, our days of happy drinking are over. And that was true with me. And it became quite miserable and quite unacceptable. So obviously people saw me just spiraling down further and further and further. And a friend who took me to the meeting said, there's a guy that can help you. His name is Fred. Why don't you give him a call? I said, okay. So I took his number and I threw it away. The next day, a different person said to me, there's a guy that can help you. His name is Fred. So yeah, give me his number. I didn't call him. Third day, different person said, there's a guy that can help you. I said, let me guess, is his name Fred? They went, yeah, call him. So I thought, let me call Fred just to get these people off my back, right? And I call him and he said to me, he said, John, your friends are really worried about you. I said, yeah, apparently so. He said, I can help you. He said, I want to come over and meet with you. And this was like Monday. And I said, okay, well, come over on Thursday. Okay? And he was a good old-time 12-stepper. And he knew that Thursday could mean death. He said, no, I'll be over in 20 minutes. And that's how we work. We understand the deadly nature of this disease, and we don't have a lot of time. We just can't put off a 12-step call for days, or even sometimes hours. And so he came over and he walked into the room and he said to me, John, you will never have to hurt from drugs or alcohol again. And I believed him. To this day, I don't know why I believed him, but it was almost like the voice of God was speaking right through him. You'll never have to hurt from drugs or alcohol again. And it was that moment I surrendered completely and said, okay. And off we went, to a detox and to a treatment center. And there began my journey with sobriety. And I haven't looked back since. And there have been good times, there have been bad times, there have been uphill climbs, there have been downhill runs. But I've managed to stay sober through it all. And what I've discovered is when I take these directions that this program offers me, I'm going in the direction where life unfolds into goodness, into joy, into happiness. And when I don't follow the directions because I'm stubborn or self-willed, it doesn't go so well. And I want you to really think in your own life, where was the hand of God? Even before you got sober. When you think about it, it's pretty amazing how it all starts to connect and come together. Someone said to me, you have long-term sobriety, do you go through hard times? I said, yes. And how do you deal with it? I deal with it because I have a track record now. See, there's hope. And things have worked out pretty well, even in some really dark moments. So why wouldn't I trust today that no matter what the circumstances are, they will work out in the best possible way? And that's what sobriety gives you. It gives you the ability to walk through life on life's terms, no matter what they are. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're really hard, sometimes they're really tragic. But with the conviction that this will work out for the best. I will learn something from it. I will meet someone because of it. I will change. I will grow. Or I might help another person grow. So every situation is imbued with great hope and great possibility. And unless we see that, we're going to miss the big picture. That's why it's so great to be here in Sweden and to see what has unfolded. When I came over here for one of the first retreat, and just a small group were working their butts off to build this fellowship here. And they said to me, our goal is to have the World Conference in Sweden. And that was about 7, 8, 10 years ago. Well, guess what? Here we are. Here we are. You fulfilled your dream. And that didn't just happen. It happened because people committed themselves to service in this program. People committed themselves to living a spiritual life and living by spiritual principles. And when you do that, amazing things come to pass, as it says. And amazing things have come to pass here in Sweden. It was certainly an uphill climb to get the convention here, but the Swedes did it. And that's just a testimony to the power of God and the grace of God working through this program in the lives of the people here. So it really tells us there's nothing we can't do. The possibilities are endless. And if we do that, who knows what the future will look like? We come to this to the last hour and the last speaker, and they asked me to be the quote spiritual speaker, whatever the hell that means. And it says in that reaching out to others, having the newcomer in my life is where my spirituality begins. So remember that it's where it begins. So when you have the newcomer in your life, when you're reaching out to others, that's where spirituality is born. See, because in the dope house, there was spirituality, but it was all self-centered. It was all about me. When we come here, it's about other people, and that's how our spirituality grows. And in that process, we learn who our God is. A while back, I was in the car, and I was stopped at a traffic light. And there were 3 lanes of traffic, and there were 2 turning lanes, and all the traffic was stopped. And the light turned for the turn, and they were, turning, and everybody was trying to make that light before it went red. And I kind of noticed in the rearview mirror there was a store at the corner, and these 2 girls came out of the store. And they were running, and I could see what they were going to do. They were running through the parked car, the cars that were stopped to cross the street. But of course, what they didn't see was the cars turning, making the left turn. They couldn't have seen it. But they were going to run it, and I knew exactly what was going to happen. And they ran as quickly as they could. They got to where the cars were turning, and this big truck hit both of them and just threw them in the air. And I just watched them. And there was all kinds of chaos there at the scene. And, my heart was like instantly broken. Like, oh. And so the ambulance came and took them away. And anyway, I found out that they actually were able to leave the hospital that day. Thank God. They were very bruised, but nothing life-threatening. But I thought of that and thought, what they were doing was wrong, right? They were breaking the law, jaywalking, right? This was the consequence of their bad decision, correct? But at that moment, I didn't think any of that. I had this compassion in my heart for them, and I didn't want them to get hit by a car. And when they did, I felt, oh. And I think that little bit of compassion that was in me comes from my God. My God has that same level of compassion for every one of us. He sees us doing the wrong thing. He sees us going in the wrong direction. He sees the destruction we're about to unleash in our life and the lives of other people. And yet it still breaks his heart to watch it happen. It still breaks his heart to watch it happen because he loves every one of us. And just like we would have that type of compassion, he does too for us. And I think that, he sends us signs and signals over time. He sends people into our lives. He sends sometimes bad circumstances to try to get our attention, all because he sees us headed in the wrong direction. And he sees that if we don't turn around, we're going to have some really serious consequences. And he's trying and he's trying and he's trying. And once he does get our attention, whether it's through the circumstances of our lives, maybe it's in a jail cell, a hospital bed, a psychiatric unit, maybe it's because of someone who reached out to you and offered you hope or showed you a different set of directions, that was the moment you get turned around. It's the moment you start finding your way in a new direction with a new set of principles to follow. And when you really think of it, think of your own life and your own moment. However it came, it doesn't really matter. It usually comes through the hand of another person. But it's the compassion of a higher power for every one of us who sees where we're going, sees the destruction that's about to unfold, and wants to pull us away from it. And sometimes he can, sometimes he can't. Sometimes he has to let us hit that wall. Sometimes he has to let us experience that disaster, that tragedy. But he's still there, trying to get to us, trying to turn us around, trying to just send the message that he loves us and he cares for us. So when I look over the whole course of my life, even the bad things, when it says we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it, that's a hard statement. It's a real hard statement. Some of us have real regrettable past. And for me, making up some of the amends were difficult. I had done a lot of crappy things and harmed a lot of people. And I needed to amend all that, and it was kind of frightening and scary. But when I did, I found out that the path to grace was open to me even wider. And which meant every time I made an amend, every time I was able to right the wrongs that I had done through the principles of this program, the path of grace got wider and wider. And more people started to come into my life to help me. And that evidence, to me, is the evidence of the hand of God in my own life. And I hope it's the evidence of God in your own life as well, as you kind of see just the small things that have happened over the years, or even if it's just a few months. Somehow it's all too unexplainable and too coincidental to chalk up to chance, because there's a purpose here at work in us and through us and because of us. And so, I study history, and I look at, when Christianity first started in the Roman Empire, it was small, a few followers, and over the next 300 years, it converted the entire Roman Empire. And it was because people lived in small communities, willing to love other people, willing to take in orphans, willing to care for the sick and the dying, willing to feed the hungry. And that witness changed things. You who live in Europe see it more than we do in the States. It's all, the fingerprints are all over this continent. And I believe that same power has been unleashed through the 12 steps and in Cocaine Anonymous. Slowly over time, we're spreading across the world. Slowly over time, because we are living in small communities, meetings, home groups, fellowship, conventions, workshops, whatever it may be. And we're coming together in love to help one another. And we visit the hospitals to reach out to the sick, to reach out to those who need assistance. We welcome the newcomer. When one of our fellows gets sick, seriously ill, we're there to support him or her. And that's attractive. That's attractive. That pulls people in. And as we continue to do it, we continue to spread this thing. So just think how far we've come in these, 35 years or so. From a small group in Los Angeles that was willing to think a little bit differently, to reach out in a different way to the addict than had been, and that just spread through the U.S. It's crossed the ocean, it's come to the UK, now it's come to the continent, it's moving into Russia, and we're hoping it one day moves into China as well. So the same principle is at work as was at work when Christianity began, in the first century. We're just like them. We're the pioneers. We're the ones who are building the foundation for a new way of life for anyone who desires it, anyone who chooses it, anyone who is willing to give us a little bit of a hearing. And we can think really, really, really big worldwide today, which is really cool. We're in an international convention in Sweden. I mean, wow. But it all starts, that picture of Bill and Bob with alcoholic number 3, that's our foundation. It always comes back to that. Unless we're doing that, this isn't going to really matter so much. So when you leave here, remember that's your job. There'll be an addict out there put in your path that you have to help, that you have to offer the gift that has been freely given to you. And when you do that, the fellowship continues to build. When you do that, you go from one meeting in Sweden to 100 meetings in Sweden. When you do that, you go from a group of 2 people to a group of 10, 20, 100. There's no limit on this thing. The sky's the limit. And we have to take that principle seriously of reaching out. Because when we do that, that's where spirituality begins. That's where our spirituality is strengthened. That's where we come in contact with this thing called love. It's where we are able to give of ourselves selflessly. It's where we're able to put aside our own concerns and no longer worry about us, but begin to worry about the other person, and things start to work out just as they should. And unless we're committed to that, it's fine to go to a meeting, but when we go, we have to be willing to reach out. And I love the fact that we read that reading at every meeting, at least the ones I go to, reaching out. We have to hear it again and again and again and again and again. And we have to remember who reached out to us. I look back and I remember Fred. And I could still see his face. He's long since deceased. But for me, that was the face of God at that moment that changed my life, because he reached out to me and was willing to show me how to take those first baby steps towards sobriety, and how to deal with who I am and my unique situation, and realize you're really not all that unique. So if we leave here, there are many things you could leave here with. Hopefully you made many good friends. You made some new friends. You deepened friendship with others. You heard something that really jogged your consciousness, and it will stay with you. It will stay with you. There were 2 things that I heard that have really stuck with me. The first was the first night when Terry said, "There's enough grace in these rooms to heal all of God's broken children." So, there's no seating capacity here. It's unlimited. As many people need to get into these rooms can get into these rooms, find healing, hope. And the other thing was, Robert said it when they were given their share about the history of Sweden, which is an incredible history, right? And you think about it, here's Robert dying from cocaine addiction, and he hears about Cocaine Anonymous, and only someone with a huge friggin' ego would get on a plane and make a transatlantic flight to go to New York to go to a meeting. I mean, who else does that, right? But it shows you how God finds the exact people he needs. He needed somebody with that big of an ego to be willing to go to a meeting, a couple thousand miles away. I mean, that's just incredible. But what he said at the end was this. He said, what you have to remember is it was service that built CA Sweden. It was service, not one person. We were all just a link in the longer chain. We do our part, we play our role. Some of us play a more prominent role than others, but we're all that link in the chain. And service is what built CA Sweden. Service is what will build CA worldwide. And unless we're committed to that simple principle, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. But it is happening here, and I'm grateful that I've been just a little part of that history, and been able to watch it grow, thrive. And I've looked forward to coming to this convention since they first announced that it would be here, because I knew the work and the love that went into it by the people who helped to raise CA Sweden to the level it is now. So I leave with those 2 things stuck in my head. And it will help me to invite the next person into these rooms. I'm fortunate enough, because of what I do, people come to me every day. And it's really easy to spot the drug addict and the alcoholic. It's like about 9 out of 10 people who come to me, either that or they need Koanon really bad, really bad. So it works. I have these tools at my disposal that I can freely share with other people so that they could find healing and hope as well. But I'll just leave with that image that these rooms are just that giant, big enough for all of God's children who are broken, need healing, need to find the message of recovery. And so there's no limit. But also remember that service is what builds our society. Service is what allows us to grow and allows us to thrive. So who knows what service opportunity will come my way, will come your way. But please, whatever you do, take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. And so, grateful to be here, and all I could think and pray is God bless the fellowship in Sweden. Long live Cocaine Anonymous in Sweden. May you thrive, may you grow, and may you see just a little bit of the fruits of your labor so that you'll have enough to know that you're on the right path, you're going in the right direction, and you want to continue down that road of happy destiny. And remember, the same God who got us here, however he got us here, is the God who we leave with when we leave this convention. And hopefully that's the God we can give to one another when we reach out to whatever it is who's put in our path, calls us on the phone, or we happen to meet by chance. When we do that, we'll be faithful members of Cocaine Anonymous. Thank you. God bless you. God bless CA.